Miguel Nicolelis is the professor and co-director of the Center for Neuroengineering at the Duke University Medical Center. And he's going to speak about directing robots and microchips to be from the human brain to be able to move things around.
Well, thank you very much. This is a great honor for me. I'd like to thank the IEEE for inviting me for this milestone, historical milestone of a celebration of a society that has contributed so much to the advance of technology, science, and mankind. So it's a great pleasure for me to be here. I'll take a little different take on the brain by starting to by showing you on the left corner here, if you have never seen a brainstorm before, a real one, not the one that we pretend to do every day, this is what you see here, 10 seconds of about 100 brain cells firing electrical pulses simultaneously to define what we neuroscientists like to call a spatial-temporal pattern, but in reality is a piece of thinking. This is just one of the first images we ever got in neuroscience of a snapshot of 100 out of 1,000,000 neurons participating in the generation of something that we do every day, that is to transform visual cues into action. That's what is part of being a human means. What I want to show you today very briefly is that in the last decade, the sudden and unexpected arranged marriage between neuroscience, brain research, computer science, microengineering, and electrical engineering and mechanical engineering is allowing us to go a little further than just listen to this symphony, this cerebral symphony of a few million neurons playing their tunes to produce what it means to be a human. In fact, in addition to studying the brain, we have been able, in this arranged marriage that has turned out to be a happy marriage, to not only listen to these signals, but to actually interpret what they mean, the messages that they carry, and extract these electrical messages from these spatial-temporal patterns that actually resemble thinking, all the thinking that we do in our lifetimes, and try to decode these messages, translate them into digital commands that can be actually transported in real time, a little faster than our brains actually do to transport these electrical waves to our body, and enact our voluntary will, or the voluntary will of whoever's brain is donating its thinking to these machines, to generate behavior, either locally or remotely, that comes directly from what some call the site of the soul, and most of us scientists call the site of where mankind actually blossoms. So what you see here in this graph is the first drawing that described a decade ago or so a brain-machine interface. The idea that we could read in real time electrical patterns from the brain, decode using modern microelectronics the motor patterns or the motor code or the motor instructions that were embedded in these electrical signals, and then project these instructions to devices, virtual devices, computational devices, mechanical devices that were located either next to the subject or remotely, so that that device could fulfill the dream of every machine, to behave like man. And this device could then enact this motor will and perform a behavior that was an action that could be signaled back to the brain through a closed control loop. And I'm going to show you the latest on this, that it started with simple visual images on a computer screen. I'll quickly go to the history of the 10 years history of this in the next whatever 7 minutes I have left, to show you that now not only we can feedback this information to visual cues on a computer screen, but recently in the last few months we have discovered a way that can actually completely free the brain at long last from its body. Because we have found that we can deliver this feedback information directly to the brain, and the brain can learn arbitrary spatial-temporal patterns that inform that brain what its new appendices, what is this new part of its body is doing, whatever it is, at the moment of action. So this is just to show you an evolution very quickly. This is one of the first primates, Aurora, my favorite monkey actually, a colleague that worked with us for a long, long time, who is playing a video game, as you can see in the movie, using her hand and a joystick. And she's moving a cursor And every time she crosses that big target that shows up, she gets what every monkey ever dreams about, a drop of Brazilian orange juice. And for that drop of Brazilian orange juice, Aurora will do anything for you, like playing a video game for a couple hours every day for several months. Well, while she's doing that, we are basically training this device to learn the spatial temporal patterns produced by her brain that are necessary to generate these hand movements, beautiful hand movements that she's utilizing to actually play the game. So when we actually, our models, that I'm not going to bother you with the equations, when they reach an optimal performance after a few weeks of training, and we are able to actually turn on this brain-machine interface and enact the voluntary will of this primate into a machine, what happens is that Aurora now can use her mind to play this game without actually moving. The body is not necessary anymore because her thinking is being translated to digital commands that can move a robotic device that you're going to see in a millisecond. And is this device now virtually a third arm that is playing the video game by controlling the cursor and its encounter with the ball that translates into a drop of Brazilian oranges. I hope nobody's from Florida here. So this is what happens when you connect, besides our colleague, when we connect the brain of this primate to a device like this robotic arm, is now the brain-machine interface and the new actuator that is playing the game for Aurora. And Aurora not necessarily needs to move her hand or arms. In fact, 30 days after this training, as you see here, she realizes that she can use her biological arms for something else that is more even important, like scratching her back or trying to scratch a scientist that is walking behind her. So by all means, including all physiological measurements that we made of her brain, she has acquired a third arm that was just a few meters away in a different room at Duke University. But that's not all. This is not just something that you can do for upper limbs. You can generalize this for the entire body, and you can take this to a scale of space, time, and force that we didn't imagine before this arranged marriage came to fruition. So this is another rhesus monkey that learned to walk like we do, bipedally, in a treadmill. And as she did that, we are recording her brain activity and translated this brain activity into digital commands that just reflect the brain's image of the steps that she has to take to walk in a variable environment, because this treadmill can change its speed, its slope, direction. It's something like we all do every day. But we are actually trying, at that point, to get these signals and do something else. We're trying to predict her locomotion patterns in a variable, as I said, environment, so that she could, her brain activity seen here in red, combined activity of 300 neurons, could actually predict a very different locomotion patterns that an animal needs to have to survive in an environment. To prove that that was possible, and that was possible to build a brain-machine interface for locomotion, we went a little further. We basically got this brain activity recorded in real time, and we transmitted 20 milliseconds faster than the brain actually does to transmit that signal from the head to the muscle to Kyoto, Japan, where ATR, the most sophisticated bipedal robot built so far, was ready to fulfill its dream of walking like a primate. So by linking that brain at Duke University with a robot at Kyoto and sending visual information from the legs of that robot walking in a treadmill back to the front of this monkey, we were able to create a transcontinental brain-machine interface that operated, as I said, back and forth, 20 milliseconds faster than the biological hardware that takes the signals from the brain to the muscles and allows us to walk. And in doing so, more than having fun during the process, as I said, we fulfill this humanoid robot dream of walking like a primate. This is a video from last year where the robot is suspended and is walking. All the leg movements that you see are generated by the outputs coming from the robot's legs, the brain of the monkey, controlling the robot's legs. Well, since then, this robot has actually been learning to walk autonomously with the same brain signals. But we have learned that with the same technology, we can deliver messages back to the brain. We can microstimulate the brain with simple spatial-temporal patterns, and we can teach these primates to operate something new, something that we are calling a brain-machine-brain interface. Because at this point, the body is removed from the equation. You can actually deliver all this sensory feedback information directly to the tactile cortex, for instance, and the animal is going to sense what this device is doing, and you can learn if you use tactile information or microstimulation of the cortex, as well as the animal had a touch, a direct touch of this object. So this is the first monkey who succeeded in disambiguating a task in which the visual cues, the two circles appearing on the side, are identical. So visually, he cannot know where he has to move his cursor to get the orange juice that he wants or she wants. To do that, she has to interpret a pattern that is delivered into the brain. And so by doing that, by establishing this direct link between a device and a machine, she learned to operate this brain-machine-brain interface. Why this is relevant, and I'll finish with this, is because not only we can think about ways of learning more about the brain, but we can hopefully in the near future repair lesions that occur in the brain and the central nervous system by creating a bypass, what we call a neuroprosthetic device that may restore in the beginning motor functions, but in the future may be used to restore other functions. In fact, all that we have seen in this research in 10 years suggests that that book that you just saw in the previous talk, the 1,400 pages of the textbook, have to be basically rewritten one by one, because things are much more complicated than you see there. In fact, what we propose to do is to start this rewritten by doing something very concrete, is we call a Walk Again project, an international consortium of leading engineering, computation science, and neuroscience institutes that are getting together from Europe, North America, and South America, and we hope Asia, Africa very soon, to make someone walk. Someone that can no longer walk biologically, use this technology to allow someone to regain the ability to move around and enjoy life fully. Thank you very much.